The ship came down slowly through the purple clouds of Station 9. It was a small transport vessel, nothing special to look at. But the crew waiting on the landing platform knew that this ship carried something very special indeed. It carried a human. Pressed his face against the window like a child seeing snow for the first time. He had traveled for 6 months through the cold darkness of space to reach this place. Now he could finally see his new home. The station floated above a gas giant, held in place by massive gravity anchors. Lights blinked across its surface like stars had fallen and decided to stay. Docking in 5 minutes, the ship's computer announced. Grabbed his bags and walked to the exit door. He was a young man with messy black hair and a smile that never seemed to leave his face. He wore the gray uniform of the Galactic Survey Corps, but he had added small patches of flowers on his sleeves. He was, after all, a plant specialist. He thought the flowers made him look friendly. The door opened with a hiss. Cold air rushed in, carrying strange smells that had never experienced before. He stepped out onto the metal platform and looked at the group waiting for him. There were 3 different species standing there. Had studied them during his journey, but seeing them in person was completely different. The tallest one was Commander. She was which meant she looked something like a giant praying mantis standing on 2 legs. Her body was covered in shiny green plates, and she had large compound eyes that reflected its image back at him 100 times. Her mandibles clicked together as she watched him approach. Next to her stood an older whose green color had faded to a gentle brown. He moved slowly and carefully, and could see wisdom in the way he held himself. This was the station's head scientist, a being who had studied life forms for longer than humans had been traveling among the stars. The third alien was smaller and covered in soft blue feathers. And she belonged to a species called She had large round eyes like an owl and a small sharp beak. Her feathers kept moving and shifting, which later learned meant she was nervous. As the station's doctor, she would be responsible for keeping him alive. From the way her feathers stood up when she looked at him, she was already worried about this job. "Welcome to Station 9, Commander said. Her voice was strange, made of clicks and hums, but the translator in his ear turned it into words he could understand. "You are the first human to serve on this station. We are curious about you." "Thank you for having me," said with a bow. "I'm very excited to be here. I brought gifts." He reached into his bag and pulled out small packages wrapped in colorful paper. The aliens stared at them with confusion. "It's a human tradition," explained. "When you go to a new place, you bring presents. These are seeds from my grandmother's garden back on Earth." Took a step back. "Seeds? What kind of seeds?" "Oh, all kinds. Tomatoes, peppers, some apple trees. I thought I could grow them here and share Earth food with everyone." The 3 aliens exchanged looks that did not understand, turned to a small device on his arm and pressed several buttons. His old eyes went wide. "Young human," he said slowly, "when you say peppers, do you mean the fruit that contains capsaicin?" "Yes, I brought several varieties. Some of them are quite spicy." Made a sound like a kettle whistling. Her feathers puffed up until she looked twice her normal size. "Capsaicin is a dangerous chemical weapon. It causes extreme pain in every known species." Laughed, he actually laughed. "It's not a weapon, it's delicious. Humans put it on everything." Commander's mandibles clicked rapidly. "We were warned that humans were unusual. I see now that the warnings did not go far enough." She turned and began walking toward the station's main entrance. "Come, I will show you to your quarters. Your laboratory is in Section 7, far from the main living areas." "Far away, why?" "For safety reasons." Followed her, still smiling, still not understanding why everyone seemed so worried. Behind him and walked together, speaking in low voices. "Did you see what else was in his file?" whispered. "Before he became a plant specialist, he worked as a food taster on Earth." "I saw," replied. A job where the purpose is to eat dangerous things and survive. Only humans would create such work. How am I supposed to keep him alive? His species deliberately poisons itself for enjoyment. Perhaps, said thoughtfully, keeping him alive will not be as difficult as we fear. Perhaps the difficulty will be keeping everyone else alive around him. His feathers flattened against her body. She had not considered that possibility. Ahead of them had stopped to look at a window showing the swirling clouds of the gas giant below. The colors were beautiful, oranges and reds mixing together like paint. He pressed his hand against the glass and smiled. He had no idea that in his bag, tucked between his clothes and his grandmother's seeds, were specimens that the Galactic Compact had classified as some of the most dangerous organic materials in known space. They were just snacks for the journey. He pulled out a red fruit and bit into it, juice running down his chin. It was a death apple, though he did not know that name. On Earth, his family had called them something else entirely. They had called them delicious. 3 weeks passed on Station 9. In that time, had transformed his laboratory into something that made the other crew members afraid to walk past it. He called it his garden. Everyone else called it the death room. Was a reptile-like species with scales that changed color based on her emotions. Right now, standing at the entrance of Hydroponics Bay 4, her scales had turned completely gray. Gray meant fear. Gray meant her body was telling her to run away as fast as possible. But she could not run. She had been assigned as assistant, and she took her duties seriously. "Good morning," called out cheerfully. He was kneeling in the dirt, his hands covered in soil, planting something that looked innocent but probably was not. Come in, come in. I want to show you something." Stepped inside carefully, her clawed feet making soft clicks on the metal floor. The room had changed so much since the human arrived. Where there had once been empty growing beds, there were now rows and rows of green plants. Some had flowers. Some had fruits. All of them, according to the station's database, were capable of killing her. "What is that?" she asked, pointing at a tall plant with white flowers shaped like bells. "That's foxglove. Beautiful, isn't it? The whole thing is poisonous, but it's also used in heart medicine back on Earth." Poisonous and medicine at the same time. "Most medicine is poison if you take too much," said with a shrug. "Or not enough. It's all about balance." Scales flickered to a sickly yellow. Yellow meant confusion. Humans are very strange. "I get that a lot." She walked deeper into the garden, keeping her arms close to her body so she would not accidentally touch anything. In the corner, she saw a small orchard of trees. They were only waist-high, but they were already producing fruit. Red fruit, shiny and round, hanging from the branches like drops of blood. "Those are the ones I'm most proud of," said, coming to stand beside her. "I grew them from seeds my grandmother gave me before I left Earth. She told me they were a special variety that our family had been growing for generations." "What are they?" Reached out and picked one. "We just call them red apples. Want to try one?" Checked her scanner. The device beeped urgently and red warning lights flashed across its screen. "This fruit is classified as malice. The common name is death apple. One bite contains enough neurotoxin to kill in 4 minutes. Would last maybe 6. "Really?" Looked at the apple in his hand with mild interest. That's a scary name." "You should put it down. You should put it down right now." "But I'm hungry." Before could stop him, bit into the apple. His teeth broke through the red skin with a crisp sound. Juice ran down his chin and dripped onto his shirt. He chewed slowly, eyes closed, enjoying the taste. "This is a good one," he said after swallowing. "Sweet but with a little bit of tartness. My grandmother would be proud." Stood frozen. Her scales had gone completely white, which meant her body had given up on choosing an emotion and had simply shut down instead. She watched the human take another bite, then another. "You should be dead," she whispered. "But I'm not." "The toxin. Your nervous system should be shutting down, your heart should have stopped. Finish the apple and toss the core into a compost bin. I've been eating these since I was 5 years old. My grandmother had a whole orchard of them. We made pies, jams, cider. They were my favorite fruit growing up. How is that possible? I don't know. I guess humans are just built different. Finally found the ability to move again. She turned and ran toward the door. I need to tell doctor. I need to tell everyone. You should be dead. You ate something that kills people, and you're standing here talking about your grandmother. Wait, don't make a big deal about this. But she was already gone, her footsteps echoing down the corridor. Sighed and looked around his garden. He really did not understand what the problem was. Everything here was normal to him. These were the plants he had grown up with, the foods he had eaten his whole life. How was he supposed to know that the rest of the galaxy considered them deadly? He walked over to another section of the garden where he was growing peppers. He picked a small red one and popped it into his mouth. The heat spread across his tongue, making his eyes water slightly. It was a good pepper, strong. His mother would have approved. Behind him, alarms began to sound throughout the station. Warning, the computer announced. Biological hazard detected in Hydroponics Bay 4. All personnel are advised to stay clear. Looked around at his plants, his beautiful, dangerous, delicious plants. I really need to update the computer's database, he muttered to himself. This is getting ridiculous. He picked another apple from the tree and took a bite. Whatever was about to happen, he was going to face it with a full stomach. That was the human way. Had never run so fast in her entire life. Her small legs pumped beneath her, her blue feathers streaming behind her like a banner. In her hands, she clutched an emergency medical kit containing the most powerful antidote known to galactic science. Compound 7 Theta, the only cure for death apple poisoning. It had taken the medical council 200 years to develop it, and each dose cost more than a small spacecraft. Had only 3 doses on the entire station. She was about to use one on a human, who had apparently eaten an entire death apple for breakfast. Out of the way, she screamed as she ran past a group of engineers. They pressed themselves against the walls, watching the small, bird-like doctor sprint toward Hydroponics Bay 4. The doors to the garden were sealed. Red warning lights flashed above them. Slammed her authorization code into the panel and waited the longest 3 seconds of her life for the doors to open. They slid apart with a hiss, and she burst inside. She found sitting on an overturned crate near his apple trees. He was humming a song she did not recognize. In his hand was another apple half-eaten, juice dripping onto his pants. "Stop!" shrieked. Her voice came out as a high-pitched whistle that hurt even her own ears. Human dropped the fruit. Looked up at her with genuine surprise. "Doctor, what's wrong? Why are you breathing so hard?" "The apple, the poison. Your organs should be failing right now." Rushed toward him, nearly tripping over a row of tomato plants. She grabbed his wrist and pressed her medical scanner against his skin. The device hummed and beeped as it analyzed his body. The results made no sense. "This is impossible," she whispered. "Your heart rate is normal. Your neural activity is normal. There is toxin in your blood, but it's not doing anything." "That's because I'm fine," said gently. I tried to tell, but she ran away before I could explain. Stared at the apple in his hand. It was definitely malice. The scanner confirmed it. The flesh was filled with enough poison to kill every on the station twice over. "I have the antidote," she said, holding up the injector. "Please let me give it to you. Even if you feel fine now, the toxin could be building up in your system. It could cause damage that won't show until later." Smiled at her. It was a kind smile, the smile of someone trying to comfort a frightened child. "Doctor, I appreciate your concern. Really, I do. But I've been eating these apples my whole life. My grandmother grew them. My mother made pies with them. I used to pick them from the trees when I was a boy and eat them on the way to school. Your whole life. Since I was 5 years old. That's about 30 years of eating death apples, if that's what you want to call them. He took another bite, chewing slowly. We just called them red apples. Lowered the injector. Her medical training had not prepared her for this. Everything she knew about toxicology said that this human should be dead. Not dying. Dead. Already cold on the ground. How? She asked. It was the only word she could manage. I don't really know. On Earth, almost everything is dangerous in some way. The plants, the animals, even the water in some places. I guess our bodies just learned to handle it over thousands of years. Shrugged. We build up tolerance, I think. Our livers are very good at filtering out bad things. Your species evolved to survive poison. We evolved to survive everything. Earth is not a gentle place. Sat down heavily on the dirt floor. Her feathers were flat against her body, which happened when she was too exhausted to feel anything else. She had run here expecting to save a life. Instead, she had discovered that her patient was basically immortal. The compact classifies Earth as a Category 7, she said quietly. I read that in your file, but I thought it was exaggeration. I thought it was propaganda. It's probably accurate, admitted. We have animals with enough venom to kill 10 men. We have plants that can dissolve your skin. We have weather that can freeze you, burn you, drown you, and blow you away, sometimes all in the same day. And you survived. We did more than survive. We thrived. We conquered everything that tried to kill us, and then we started eating it. Looked at the apple in his hand, red and shiny and deadly. On any other world, it would be treated as a weapon. Here, in this garden, in this human's hand, it was just food. Can I ask you something? Said. Yes. What does the antidote do? Compound 7 theta. It neutralizes the neurotoxin and repairs cellular damage. Nodded thoughtfully. Could it be used for other poisons, other toxins? Possibly. It was designed specifically for malice, but the mechanism might work on similar compounds. Why? The human smiled. Because if you can make an antidote for something that doesn't hurt me, imagine what you could cure with my help. I could be your test subject. I could eat everything poisonous in the galaxy and help you find cures for all of it. Stared at him. In that moment, she realized that humans were not just survivors. They were something far more terrifying. They were volunteers. Antidote for what? Asked, taking another bite of his apple. I'm fine, but let's find out who else we can help. The conference room on Station 9 was the largest space on the entire facility. It needed to be, because it had to fit representatives of every species that worked there. Tonight, every seat was filled. Commander stood at the head of the long metal table. Her compound eyes reflected the faces of her crew as she looked around the room. And others. All of them wore expressions of shock and disbelief. I have called this meeting to discuss the situation with our human crew member, began. Doctor, please give your report. Stood up slowly. Her feathers were still slightly ruffled from the events of the morning. I examined human after he consumed what should have been a lethal dose of malice. According to every medical text in our database, he should have died within minutes. But he did not die, said from his seat. The old scientist's voice was calm, but his eyes showed deep interest. He did not die. He did not even feel sick. His body processed the toxin like it was nothing more than water. Pulled up a holographic display showing medical scans. Look at this. His liver is producing enzymes we have never seen before. His nervous system has developed protective barriers around every major pathway. His cells are actively fighting the poison and winning. A murmur went through the room. They shifted in their seats, scales flickering with unease. They whistled softly to each other. How is this possible? Asked an engineer named Sora. She was young and had never met a human before arrived. No species in the compact has this level of toxin resistance. Humans evolved, Anna explained. We knew this. What we did not understand was what that truly meant. Their planet is covered in things that kill, poisonous plants, venomous animals, deadly bacteria, radiation from their star, extreme temperatures, violence from nature itself. And they survived all of it, added. Not just survived. They became the dominant species. They spread across every part of their world from frozen wastelands to burning deserts. They did more than survive, said quietly. They adapted. Generation after generation, their bodies learned to fight back against everything that tried to kill them. The humans who could not handle the poison died. The ones who could lived and had children. After millions of years of this, they became what is now. Unkillable, Sora asked. Not unkillable, but very, very hard to kill. Raised her hand. Her scales were still pale from fear, but she had found her courage again. There is something else. I looked through his cargo manifest. The seeds and plants he brought on board are not just decorations. They are weapons. She pressed a button, and a list appeared on the holographic display. Names of plants scrolled past, each one marked with red warning symbols. Nightshade, hemlock, oleander, manchineel, which produces a toxin so deadly that a single seed can kill an adult. He brought all of these things onto our station. Her voice trembled slightly. He calls them his grandmother's garden. The room fell silent. His mandibles clicked together slowly. Human. Yes, Commander. Had been sitting quietly at the far end of the table, watching the discussion with interest. You brought biological weapons onto my station. I brought food. Food that kills every species except your own. Thought about this for a moment. I suppose that's true, but I didn't know that when I packed them. On Earth, these are just normal plants. My grandmother grew them in her backyard. Children play near them every day. Your children play near deadly poison. We teach them not to eat the wrong parts, usually. Leaned forward, usually. Sometimes kids eat things they shouldn't. Most of them get sick and learn their lesson. A few need hospital treatment. Paused. Okay, I understand how that sounds, but you have to understand this is normal for us. We grow up surrounded by danger. It makes us careful. It makes you insane, Sora muttered. Maybe a little, admitted with a smile. Commander stood very still for a long moment. Her compound eyes looked at the human, at the list of deadly plants, at her frightened crew. She was trying to make a decision that would affect the entire station. We could send him back, she said finally. We could reject his assignment and request a different specialist from the compact. With respect, Commander spoke up. I don't think that would be wise. Explain. Has offered to help us. His resistance to toxins makes him the perfect test subject for developing new medicines. He could help us create antidotes for poisons that have killed millions across the galaxy. His body is a medical miracle. His body is a weapon, Sora argued. Everything is a weapon if you use it wrong, said. A knife can kill someone or cut bread. Fire can burn down a city or keep a family warm. My immunity can be a threat or it can save lives. The choice is yours. The room fell silent again. Commander looked at the human for a long time. He sat calmly, waiting for her decision, still smiling that strange human smile. You will keep your garden contained, she said finally. Warning signs on every entrance, restricted access, full hazard protocols. Agreed. You will work with Doctor on medical research. If your immunity can help others, we will find out how. I would like that very much. And you will stop eating death apples in public. You are scaring my crew. Laughed. It was a warm sound full of genuine joy. I can probably manage that. The meeting ended with more questions than answers, but one thing was certain. Nothing on Station 9 would ever be the same again. 3 months passed after the emergency council meeting. In that time, everything changed. His garden had grown. What started as a small collection of earth plants now filled 3 entire hydroponics bays. Warning signs covered every door, but the crew no longer avoided the area. Instead, they came to watch, to learn, and to wonder at the strange human and his deadly harvest. Visited every day, she had become partner in research, studying how his body processed toxins that should have killed him instantly. Together, they had made discoveries that would change medicine across the galaxy. "The new antidote is ready," she announced one morning, holding up a small vial of blue liquid. "We tested it on cell samples from 12 different species. It works on all of them." Looked up from the pepper plants he was watering. "That's wonderful news. Which toxin does it treat?" "Manchineel sap, the burning poison. Before this, there was no cure. Victims would suffer for weeks before their skin healed, if it healed at all. And now the pain stops within hours. The damage reverses within days." Feathers fluttered with excitement. "Do you understand what this means? There are planets where manchineel grows wild. Millions of people are injured by it every year. We can help all of them." Smiled and went back to his watering. This was the 7th cure they had developed together. Each one had started the same way. Would bring a deadly substance to the garden, would eat it, touch it, or breathe it in. His body would fight back and would study how. Then they would create medicine from what they learned. The process was simple. The results were miraculous. Word had spread through the Galactic Compact about the human on Station 9. Scientists sent requests to study him. Medical schools wanted to write papers about his biology. Some species were afraid of what he represented. Others saw hope. Commander had received 17 offers from other stations wanting to host. She rejected all of them. He belonged to 9 now. He was their human. "Doctor," the station computer announced suddenly, "you have an emergency communication from Prime." Feathers went flat. Prime was. Emergency communications meant something terrible had happened. She ran to the nearest screen and accepted the call. A official appeared, his scales dark with worry. "Doctor, we need your help. A fungal plague has struck our agricultural centers. Our crops are dying. We have 3 months of food remaining, maybe less." "What kind of fungus?" "We don't know. It appeared suddenly and spread faster than anything we've seen. Our scientists cannot stop it. Our farmers cannot outrun it." The official's voice cracked with emotion. 4 million people will starve if we cannot find a solution." Turned to look at, he had stopped watering his plants. He was listening. "Send me samples of the fungus," said, "and samples of your crops. I need to analyze everything before I can help." "We are sending them now. Please, doctor, you are our only hope." The communication ended. Stood frozen, her mind racing through possibilities. Fungal infections were difficult to treat. If this one was new, there might not be any cure at all. "Let me see the samples when they arrive," said quietly. "Why?" "Because I might be able to help." The samples arrived 2 days later on a fast transport ship. Studied the fungus under her microscopes while examined the dying crops. The fungus was aggressive, spreading through the plants like fire through dry grass. Nothing they tried could slow it down. On the 3rd day, walked into his laboratory carrying a basket. "I have an idea," he said, "but you're not going to like it." "Tell me anyway." "The fungus attacks plants through their roots. It breaks down the cell walls and steals nutrients, but there's one type of plant it cannot break down." He reached into the basket and pulled out a familiar red fruit. "My grandmother's apples." Feathers stood up in alarm. "You want to send death apples to Prime?" "Not the apples themselves. The trees. The roots of malice produce a chemical that kills fungus on contact. If we plant them alongside the crops, they could protect the entire food supply. But the fruit is deadly too. So we don't let them eat the fruit. We harvest it ourselves and bring it back here. The trees protect their crops and we get more apples for our research." Held up the fruit. One plant saves millions of lives. Thought about this for a long time. It was dangerous. It was strange. It was the most human solution she had ever heard. "I'll contact Commander," she said finally. The next week, a ship left Station 9 carrying 200 apple tree seedlings and one human agricultural specialist. Stood at the window as they approached Prime, watching the brown and green planet grow larger. Met him at the spaceport. Her scales were gray with exhaustion, but they brightened to yellow when she saw him. "You came," she said. "Of course I came. Your people are in trouble. What kind of friend would I be if I didn't help?" They worked together for 2 months, planted his grandmother's trees in neat rows between the crops. The fungus touched the roots and died. Slowly, the fields began to recover. Green returned to the farmlands. Hope returned to the people. On the day prepared to leave, the government held a ceremony in his honor. 4 million people watched on screens across the planet as their leaders thanked the strange human who had saved them. "You brought poison to our world," the Prime Minister said, "and used it to give us life. We do not understand your species, but we are grateful for you." Accepted their thanks with a humble bow. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small red apple. "On Earth," he said, "we have a saying, 'An apple a day keeps the doctor away.'" He took a bite and the crowd gasped. "I think maybe it keeps the famine away too." He returned to Station 9 a hero, but to him, nothing had changed. He was still just a gardener who liked to grow things. He was still just a human who ate strange food. That night he sat alone in his garden, surrounded by deadly plants and impossible cures. The stars shone through the windows above him, cold and distant. Somewhere out there, 4 million people were eating dinner because of his grandmother's apple trees. Smiled and took another bite. It was, he thought, exactly what she would have wanted.